Hello, welcome to this virtual paint and sip situation experience. I'm drinking green tea, so drink whatever you want. It's going to be a relaxing painting session, so please feel free to pause, take a break. This is meant to be chill. This is not like my in-person workshops where it has to go really fast. You can just do this at any time that you want. I've already got my materials set up, so if you don't know what materials you need, make sure that you refer to the supplies list. But right now, we're going to paint a bunch of cookies. It's going to be very holiday themed. If it's not the holidays, it's still really fun to paint. I have my water here, and I've got my palette on the side, and I have scratch paper too. So I always have scratch paper on the side just in case I need to test out any colors. So let's get started. Let's start with a gingerbread man. And the colors that I'll start with are, so I'm going to get this warm yellow. I'm going to do permanent yellow deep. And I'll squeeze it out in my palette. Probably like a pea size. Then I'll grab some burnt sienna. Squeeze out a similar amount. If you get some crusty paint all over your paper, just blow it away. Burnt sienna right here. And I'm going to squeeze out a bit of white. You always want plenty of white tubes. I'm also going to squeeze out a little bit of flame red, kind of like this warmer, fierier red. And I'm going to squeeze out a bit of ultramarine deep, just for the shadows. This one's not going to be too much, probably like half a pea size. Okay, I have two waters here, like two waters to rinse out my brushes. It's optional, but I like having two just so I have like a dirtier water, and then I have the one that cleans out the water from the dirtier water. So let's start with a pointed brush, so like my medium-sized brush. I'm going to dip a little bit of water in there and tap out the excess, or just scrape that excess off of the lip of that cup. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of that yellow, and we're going to mix it on the side right here. And I'm going to get a bit of that brown, or I guess that burnt sienna, and mix it right here. So if it's a little too dry, you want the consistency to feel almost like, kind of like a milk. I'm just gonna put the tip of my brush in the water and just add in a little bit more flow into the color that I just mixed. Perfect. So if it's flowing like that, that looks great. I'm gonna hold up my scratch paper here just so you can see the color that we're trying to get. Like this, almost like a toasty color, right? Because that's gonna be the main color of the gingerbread man. Don't be nervous. Am I nervous? I'm not nervous. We're gonna draw out the gingerbread man. We're gonna place him somewhere in this corner, and the perfect thing about gouache is that if it's a little messed up, you will make mistakes, but we can always fix them. Don't worry about it. We're going to draw a head. So we're just going to draw this kind of squished circle because this is going to be at an angle. So slightly squished circle like that. And then I'm going to follow this direction right here. I'm going to make almost like what do you call that? Like a lampshade shape. And from here, I'm gonna add arms that look like U's on the side. And I'm gonna make this U right here a little shorter because it's just going a little further away. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the legs. So this leg right here is gonna be pointed more towards us. And this leg is gonna be connected to the other leg, pointed a little away, like that. Cool? Then I'm gonna take that same color we mixed, I'm gonna load my entire brush with it, and you're just gonna color the whole thing in. Again, if you need to take time to pause, get your drawing down, feel free to pause and replay. This gingerbread man kind of reminds me of Shrek. Not like Gingy. I'm talking about Shrek 2. What was his name? Mongo. The giant one. And if you're running out of color like I am, oops, should have mixed more. I'm just going to mix in a little bit more on the side, so I'm going to take more of that yellow, mix more in here, more of that burnt sienna, and load your brush up with it and paint all over. And if you guys don't have the exact supplies I have, that is totally fine, because everyone comes from different regions, different backgrounds, so you just want to work with what you have. And the beautiful thing is that you can access this whenever you want. You can repaint it, maybe with better supplies in the future if that's what you want. Okay, so I'm just coloring him in all the way, like this. Him, her, whatever you want. Cool. So it looks, you know, it's not supposed to look super smooth. You just want it to be filled in. Okay. So if you don't have enough of that color and you need to mix more, definitely mix some more now on the side. So I have that mixed. And then, because we're going to make the shadows now, I'm going to add in a little bit more of that brown, or that burnt sienna. And I'm going to take just a teeny bit, like, I don't know if you could see that, like a pinpoint size of that blue, and I won't add it to the entire thing that I just mixed. I'll probably add it to a third of it because I don't want to darken the entire color that I just created. So I'm going to put it on my sketch paper or my test paper just so you can see what it looks like. And now we've got this darker brown. So I don't know if you've seen any of those rules, like don't darken with black, because it really does make a difference. I feel like if you darken with black, it just makes it look, I don't know, weird, a little gray. All right, so let's say that the sun is coming from kind of left. So let's add in a little bit of a line following along this gingerbread person's arm, and I'm going around like 1/4 of an inch thick just so I create that shadow. And I do that for the other side. Do the same thing. all the way through. Feel like your shape is a little off, don't you worry. Gingerbread cookies, or all cookies, don't really, like, they're not really that perfect. All right, now I'm going to try to figure out the angle. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing right here. So I'm just gonna start from not the complete middle of his head. I'm gonna go a little bit to the left of his head, and I'm gonna slowly thicken towards the outside or by his arm. And I'm gonna fill it in just like that. Okay, and I do the same thing. The gingerbread man, we're facing him like this, so we're looking at him like this. So I actually want to make this side thicker towards the edge, or towards the left side of his arm, because that would match the angle of his head. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go all the way down, following the shape of that U, but then finishing on the right side of that U. Doing the same exact thing. Filling it in with the same dark color. Again, if you need to mix more of that same dark color, take your time. Now add in a bit more of that burnt sienna right here, a bit of that blue. Fill in whatever I need to fill in. And if your brush is getting a little dry, dip it into the water. Again, we're going for that like kind of milky consistency. Not too watery either. And if it's watery, then that's fine. That's totally your style. You go for whatever style you want. That's what's cool about gouache, is that you can water it down. And it's basically like watercolor. Okay, doing the same thing here with this leg. The final side. Brush is just getting a little dry towards the tip, so I'm just adding in a bit of water because it's starting to get streaky. There you go. Yay! Amazing. Gingerbread person's base is done. If you need to do any finishing touches like I mean, we're not finished yet. You need to add in some extra shapes wherever you need. Perfect. All right. I'm going to rinse this brush out. So go in the dirtier water first, then cleanse it out completely with the cleaner water. And I'm going to dry it with my rag, just so all the color is completely out. Okay, now we're going to add in a little bit of highlights on that gingerbread man, because now that we have the base color, we have the shadow, we're going to add in some highlights. So I'm going to go into my clean water. And remember how we mixed that color just to the right? We're going to make sure that the rest of the color is clean for the base of that gingerbread man. So I'm going to take some of that yellow and I'm going to add it right to that base of the gingerbread man that we just created. The gingerbread person's color. And I'm going to take a bit of that red, just a teensy bit, like a ballpoint size as well. Kind of similar to the shadow. And I'm gonna make this orangey color. I wanna add in a little bit more yellow. So we're just gonna create this highlight. So on my scratch paper, this is what it looks like. So right next to that base color, it's really poppy and vibrant. I kind of want to add a little bit more yellow in it. So I'm going to add in more yellow. See what that looks like. Not that much different. I'm going to add in, so I'm going to cleanse my brush, dirty water first, then the clean. Slightly dry out that brush. I'm going to add in just a teensy bit of white. I mean, not a teensy bit. And I'm just going to lighten that a little bit. So I'm not completely adding white, right, to lighten the base of the color. There it is. I'm adding in like yellow and red just to make sure that it doesn't end up chalky. Okay, so now that I have this color, this kind of like honey color, that's going to be the highlight of my gingerbread person. So because the sun is coming from this way, I'm going to add in this on the left side of his head. And I'm following the contour of her head. This gingerbread person is just so rotund. Okay, so it's almost like a kind of a moon shape, and it's very subtle. I'm gonna do the same thing right here, following alongside the arm. Okay, and doing the same thing on this arm. I'm gonna do that on his leg, or its leg. And it's not like, it's not just a straight line, if you notice. It's starting from the corner, I start skinny, and then I thicken it out towards the base of the limb. And I'm going to do the same thing on this last leg. Okay, very subtle, very, very subtle. Clean out that brush, dirty water first, clean water, and dry out that brush. Now we're going to do the same thing on the dark side of the gingerbread person. I'm going to take a bit of that clean water, reactivate that shadow that we created earlier, so on that right-hand side. And then I'm going to add in a little bit more of that burnt sienna. Oops, sorry. Disregard what I just said. We're going to add highlights. So I'm not going to add in a little bit more of that burnt sienna. I'm going to add in a little bit more, so clean water, a bit more of that yellow, that golden yellow to that highlight, or to that shadow, and a little bit more red. Okay, so when I hold up my scratch paper and I put it on that shadow, it's kind of like a highlight, right? It's a little red, so I'm just going to add in more of that golden yellow onto it. Add in a little bit more. Perfect. There you go. So that's kind of the color that I'm going for, like a reddish orange. I'm going to add that just towards the left-hand side of the shadows. And then it kind of just tapers out towards the darker part of the gingerbread person. I'm going to do it here and slightly tapering out towards the darker side because the sun is coming from here. Then I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to do it here. So most of that light is coming from here. And I'm not going all the way there because that arm is kind of covering that side or that crease. Light in here. And I'm just working with the tip of my brush. I'm kind of just making like flicky strokes towards the edge Or you can just do a hard edge and make more of the swirly line. Same thing here. A little bit more light coming through there. Perfect. And then we'll do the final one on this arm. Cool. So we've got the highlights down, we've got the base of the cookie, and now it's time to frost our gingerbread person. So clean up that brush, and I want to go for a smaller brush. I'm going to go for my my round 2. So it's around, oops, sorry. It's around, I'm not even gonna lie, I don't know what size this is because every brush size is different between brands or amongst all brands. So it's like this skinny in relation to my hand. So I'm just going to take some clean water and we're gonna make the eyes. I'm gonna take some of that white and I'll mix it right here. And maybe we'll just make it white, like nothing crazy. We'll frost, we'll pipe on the gingerbread person's face. So let's say eyes are right here. Again, we're going for that milky consistency. I'm gonna draw circles. You can make whatever face you want. I'm gonna give him eyebrows because I think it'd be kind of cute. Draw a circle there, and then I'll draw another circle right here. And if the gingerbread person's eyes, like the sizes don't match, don't worry about it. Eyes are technically uneven on everyone. They're not completely the same size, unless you're lucky and you have been genetically gifted. Okay, once you make your circles, you add a face. You can make a circle. I'm just gonna make a regular smile. He looks kind of happy, right? Kind of. He looks very happy. And I'm gonna round out the edges of that smile. That is up to you. I do want it to emulate as if it's frosting that, or icing that we piped on. And icing is pretty rounded on the edges whenever you pipe it on. That's cool. Okay. My gingerbread person looks so funny. And I'm gonna make him pointy eyebrows. I don't know, they're kind of cute to me. This part you can take time, pause this if you need. Take a sip. I need a sip. I've been yapping. Add in his other eyebrow. Be careful of your paint. Don't let it get on your clothes. Yay! All right, so there's his face. Now I'm gonna take my time and keep working with this white paint, and I'm gonna add like little cufflinks all over and make these diagonal or a chevron style. Marks all over his wrists and ankles, or non-existent ankles. This gingerbread man has 0 ankles. cute. Okay, we're doing the same thing on this last side. And I'm kind of working like this, if you can see up close, almost like sideways with my brush, not completely straight down. You can do straight down, but going sideways kind of makes the stroke a little thicker. All right, okay, I'm gonna clean out that brush. And we're gonna make the bow for the gingerbread person. Take that red. Gonna mix plenty of it right here on the side. And take a bit of that clean water, which I just contaminated. And we're gonna make a bow. So let's start with the center of the bow. Let's find the center point of his face and kind of draw straight down and make a circle there. Circle the same size of its eyes. And then I'm gonna make like a sideways heart almost. And paint it in. And do the same thing on the other side. Cool. Clean out your brush. And let's get some of that clean water and get a bit of that blue just on the right side of that red. So don't completely get rid of that red. A bit of that burnt sienna and mix it in there. You're gonna get kind of like this dark brown color. Maybe add in a little bit more blue just to darken it. That might be a little too dark. Add in a little bit more red in there. There you go. Okay. I ended up with pretty much the same color. If your brush starts to get a little dry, wet it a little, get that milky consistency. And we're gonna follow the shadows of this, this bow. This bow, the light is coming from here. So that light is going to cast a shadow on this part of the bow right here. So I'm kind of doing like a semi-moon shape to the right. And I'm gonna add in a little line. Then I'm gonna add in shadows here on the right side of the bow. Do the same thing on this side of the bow. Circle or make a dot. Then slight lines here. Maybe you can do just like a skinnier line just so it looks like it's separated. A bit right there. Cool. All right, clean out that brush. And that shadow, or that first color that we created, you're going to take some of that clean water and you're going to reactivate this color right here, like from the gingerbread person. And you're just going to add in a bit of that burnt sienna. So you end up with this color. Slightly different from the shadow you created on the bow. I'm gonna go right underneath that bow and kind of tracing along the right hand side of the bow, just so it looks like it's sitting right on top of the gingerbread person. Right? Because it's kind of puffing up, the icing is. Okay, cool. Let's clean up that brush. Let's add the gumdrop buttons. So the gumdrop buttons, I kind of want to make them green. So I'm going to take some of this permanent green light and I'm going to add probably like a pea size as well. Right here, or half a pea size. And I'm going to take that clean brush, go straight into the green, and make eyeball size, maybe even a little bigger, buttons right on top of the gingerbread person, right in his midpoint. I'll go for 2 buttons. Cool. Clean out that brush. Let's make the shadows of that green. So I'm going to add in a little bit of that blue to the right side of that green. And that's pretty much it. So this is the color that I'm going to end up with. And again, the sun is coming from the left. So I'm going to add this semi-moon shape to the right-hand side of these buttons. Yay. Okay, clean out that brush. All right. Get that clean water, get a bit of white, put it right next to that green, get a bit of that yellow, add in some yellow to brighten up that white a little bit, and then you're going to add in just the teeniest amount of green, okay? So the smallest amount. The smallest amount. So right next to each other, that shadow with the highlight would look like this. It's very pale. I'm going to take that color and I'm going to put it right on top of these dots. So I'm going to make almost like one bigger dot and one little dot because it looks cute. It's pretty. Clean out that brush. Do you remember that color that we created for the shadow under the bow? We're going to use that same color to the right side on the outside of those buttons. Same technique. You're just creating a shadow. Yay. Right on the outside of those buttons. We're going to do the same thing. So use that same color, and you're going to do that with the eyes. Ah! This is going to happen. If that happens, don't freak out like I just freaked out. You're just going to take your towel or a very clean paper towel, and you're just going to dab it out. And look, he's good as new. I just had too much water in my brush, so I'm going to completely clean out that brush. And I'm going to pick up some of that shadow. We're good. And I'm going to go right on the outside. These are all also, like, the shadows are very, what do you call that? Optional. But I feel like it just adds a little bit more depth to it. Okay. Going just on the right-hand side of all these structures of the white frosting. So just on the right sides. So I'm kind of alternating here. I'm always just envisioning the sun coming from this way. So you can just follow along where I'm putting the shadows. So shadow would go here, right here, 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 and there. And then finally, this last bit will be completely on this side. All right, clean out that brush. And then for the white, this white color, we're going to create a slight shadow for it. So I'm going to take a very clean white and I'm going to add in a teensy bit of blue, just a teeny amount. Like it almost looks gray. So I'll hold this up. This is the color that you want to go for. It's a very, very light bluish gray. And make sure that your brush isn't loaded with too much water. And I'm going to go right at that curve and I'm shading in the white bits. It's very subtle, but it creates the most beautiful shadow for the white. And it's not black, right? Because if you do black and white, it just looks like a very dull gray. The blue darkens it like beautifully, that it doesn't take away from the brightness of the white too much. Following the same pattern for the shadows. Gingerbread Man is taking a while, right? But he's almost done. It's kind of fun. Okay, oh, you know what I forgot? So clean out that brush. We need to highlight that bow. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna take some of that yellow, get a bit of that yellow, a bit, and I'm gonna mix it with some of this red, and then some white, getting a little messy. And I'm just gonna make dots here. And there's my highlight. Okay, this is the fun part. You could use a pen with this, or you can use the skinny brush. I'm gonna clean out my skinny brush, and I'm gonna take my darkest color. I have black. You can use a black pen. Don't want that to get on my canvas. And I'm gonna squeeze out like the tiniest amount, like a quarter of a pea size. And I'm gonna get that milky consistency, again with that black. And I'm just gonna make a lot of lines and strokes with it. So this is my favorite thing to do. And I don't have to do complete lines. So I'm gonna outline the outside of my gingerbread person. And I kind of like a scraggly almost line. And I do incomplete lines, if that makes sense. So I don't completely close in my lines. Then maybe I'll do a dot right here, go all the way down, and I do the same thing here. Maybe I'll close this line up. This kind of works as your ink, the brush. And I keep my brush at a point. This is definitely doable too with a pen. Probably easier with a pen, but if you want to practice your strokes with skinnier brushes, this is really good. And if you need to practice, do it on your scratch paper. And I'm just doing that all the way around. And then if I slightly go astray away from the body of the cookie, then I just fill it in a little bit. I'm not really too worried about stuff going out of bounds because it adds, I don't know, I feel like it adds a lot of personality. And again, cookies are very imperfect sometimes, see? So I kind of strayed away from the edge of that cookie. Maybe an incomplete line there. Right here. There. Cool. And what I do is on the inside of the cookie, I do slightly more broken up lines just so I create a little bit more dimension or more structure. I do that all the way around every part of the cookie. Cool. Okay. Here maybe I'll make a slight line around the buttons, but not all the way, just on the right hand side. Do the same thing with the bow, maybe the bottom part of the bow and then the right side of the bow. I'm not going to touch the white parts. Maybe I'll do like a teeny dot there, teeny dot here. That looks a little psychotic perhaps, but that's fine. Maybe I'll add another dot here just to even it out. Maybe another dot here. Maybe I'll add dots on the white parts. You know what? Not loving the dots, whatever. I'll let those dry. Not loving the dots on the white parts. So I'm going to add some dots here, here. Maybe some quick directional lines to follow the circles. And then same thing with the bow. Same thing here. Maybe some dots on the bow. And add a little texture to the cookie. So I'm going to add some scragglies here, maybe some dots. Not everywhere, but just in select areas. And I'm trying to keep this brush at a point. Maybe down here by this leg, I'm going to do lines like this. Lines here, and then some dots. Lines, lines, dots, dots, dots. Lines, lines. Maybe a line here to separate the two. Need more lines here. And dots, dots, dots. As you can tell, I love dots and I love lines. Kind of doing them in like clusters of 1 to 3, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna clean out this brush. Remember how I was like, I don't like that, the dots on the white. I'm gonna clean out my brush completely, get that white color, and then just paint over those black dots. Just make sure that they're completely dry. There you go. Maybe add a little bit more. There. Yay. Cool. All right. Our gingerbread person is officially done. Now we can move on to, gotta adjust myself in my seat, onto the next cookie, which is a candy cane, a frosted candy cane. So the candy cane is gonna live somewhere right here. I'm gonna take my larger pointed brush again, put it in that clean water, and I'm gonna take that same yellow here, and then I'll make a new mixture here. Take a lot of that yellow, mixture here, maybe add in a little bit of that white. I usually don't like to mix anything into my white because it contaminates it, but I kind of don't care this time. If you want it to be clean, you can clean out your brush first, so like clean it out completely, take out the excess water, and then take out the rest. I mean, it wasn't that bad, right? Sometimes I'm just like too much into a flow. So I have this like kind of a pale yellow color, almost like a sugar cookie, right? Or I'll show you again. So the sugar cookie-ish color. So I have that pale yellow. I want to make sure that I have enough of it. So I'm going to make a pretty big batch. And I'm going to paint out the shape of this cookie. So let's say I'm going to make a marker right here. I want the top of the candy cane here, and then I want the edge to reach right here, right on the outside. Okay, so I'm going to make a cane shape. I'm going to curve down like this. It's pretty pale, so you can barely see it. And I'm going to curve up. And I'm going to go all the way down here. Perfect. Do the same thing. Follow along the lines. It's going to be pretty close to this cookie. It's actually going to overlap the gingerbread person. Go all the way down. Okay, I'm going to paint it all the way in. If you're not happy with the shape of your cane, you can make it a little thicker just to compensate for the areas that are missing some shape, like my right side right here. There. Okay. All right. I'm running a little bit low on that yellow, so I'm going to squeeze a little bit more out onto my palette. Another pea size. And I'm going to take that yellow. So my clean brush, take that yellow. Boom. Clean out my brush. And I'm going to take a teensy bit of that brown, and I'm going to mix it. So this is the color that I'm going for. If you can tell, we're basically doing a lot of very similar colors. Okay, so I'm going to trace. Again, it's kind of similar to the gingerbread cookie, so we're doing some application now. Does this remind you of school? I hope it's more fun than school. I had some fun at school, but a lot of it felt kind of suffocating. I'm going to trace along, like kind of a ½ an inch inside the edge of that candy cane that I drew, or that, yeah, cane shape that I drew. And I'm going to trace all the way down and follow the curve of that cane because it's 3-dimensional and we want that cookie shape, or we want that cookie to have that shape. And I'm going to fill in the rest. Do the same thing all the way through. Yay! So you can see it's 3-dimensional now. I'm going to add in a little bit more of that burnt sienna just to the right side of that color that I just created. Because we're going to darken it a little bit more, but not too dark because the cookie's pretty pale. So the color we're going for is like this color. We're doing a similar thing to the gingerbread man again. So the light is coming from this way, so the light is touching here, but not touching there. So I'm gonna go more in here with that darker color. And I'm doing like this flicky, like, motion with the pointed part of my brush. I'm doing the same thing, going towards the light. Or if you want it to be more hard cut, you can just do a squiggly line like this. It really doesn't matter, it's just the style, right? It's the style that you're going for. I feel like it's more graphic, reminds you of like more illustration or like graphic, what do you call that? Graphic design. When you do more of this like hard line like that. Again, it's up to you. Okay, and the light's coming from here, so there's a bit of a shadow being cast here from the cookie, right? So the cane is casting a bit of a shadow. I'm going to add in a little bit of shadow here. Then it lightens up a bit more. Take some of that yellow. And I'm just going to dry out my brush a little bit because I don't want too much more color. And I'm going to use that dry brush and use the rest of that product to just like kind of taper off. And I'm at the edge of my brush here. I'm doing the same thing all the way here. It's kind of like these smooth-ish transitions all the way down. And I'm going to take that dark color again because the light isn't touching here too much. So I'm going to go all the way down here. Same technique that I used. So I'm going to brush, clean out that brush or dry it out. And do that. Amazing. Okay, so the frosting here is going to be white. And white can get a little tricky because you want to make sure it shows up on paper. But we're going to paint in a background at the very end. So I'm going to take that white and I'm going to go here to the side. Get plenty of white because we're really going to load it onto that cookie. It's fun because it's like, it's as if we're frosting it. And I'm going to take just the teeniest bit, like the teeniest bit of red. Like this much red. Like a dash. So it almost has this pinky hue to it. So that when you lay it on paper, it actually shows against the white paper. This is what it looks like. It's like a pastel pink. You can barely see it. Pastel pink when it lays on. So I'm gonna follow along the cookie. And it's okay if you can't really see it because, again, we're going to be adding in a background later, so it really kind of pops through. Okay, and I'm going to apply this. I'm going to apply it pretty thick, so I'm at the edge of my brush, and as you can see, I'm going on top of that gingerbread person because I want it to hide a part of that gingerbread person. And if some of that gingerbread person's paint gets onto the frosting, don't worry about it. Just leave it alone. Let it dry a little bit more. And we'll come back to it once it's completely dry. And I'm not completely following, or I'm following the shape of the candy cane, but I'm going a little bit on the outside of it because I want it to give it the illusion that this frosting is raised off, raising up from the cookie. And I'm not going all the way to the edge here. I think I'll stop like right here. So I'll stop like a 1/4 inch shy or like 1/8 of an inch shy from the edge all the way around the inside of the cane. I know you can barely see it, but just bear with me we gotta trust the process. I feel like a lot of art is really just trusting the process, because the whole time you're like, when is this gonna look good? When is this gonna look good? But look at the gingerbread man. So cute, right? Okay, so once I get all the way down here, again, I'm not touching the inner edges of the cane, but I'm going outside the edges on the outer part of the cane. And once this is dried, I'm gonna color it in a bit more, maybe lay it on thick with that white here, because I want to go over that gingerbread man. There you go. Perfect. So it's covering that part of that gingerbread man, right? All right, so with this white, I'm gonna take the teensiest amount of blue. Remember how we shaded in the white part of the gingerbread person? We're doing the same thing here, okay? But I'm going a little bit more generous with the blue, and I'm gonna add in a little bit more red. So it almost has this purpley tone, like this. It's gray, but has a very purple undertone to it. Very purple forward. We're gonna follow the exact same shading pattern on this cookie, okay? But now we're doing it on the frosting. So the frosting, going like this. I wanna go skinnier brush, so I'm gonna clean this up. Clean off this brush, go with my skinnier brush, dip it into the cleaner water. My clean water isn't that clean anymore, but that's okay. You can pause if you want to wash out your water if it's too dirty. Okay, and I'm painting along the edge of this. And maybe, just maybe, what we could do is, like, what if we trace just very lightly trace first, just so we have guidelines. Very lightly trace with that same shadow we just created, that purpley shadow. Just a light tracing so we can see where that frosting is ending up, right? Following the same shadow pattern. It's underneath. And then slight lines here. Just be patient with this part. I have to be patient because I want to rush through it. Okay, we just make a separation here. And some slight lines here. I'm gonna add in a little bit more water in my brush, just so it waters down that color a little bit more. And I'm gonna color in the rest here. Really round out the edges. There you go. Okay, clean off that brush. I'm gonna take this color right here that we used for the shadow of the cookie, and I'm gonna make it pretty watered down. So you're gonna see it more like this, right? It's kind of translucent. And I'm gonna do the shading on top of the cookie, so I'm just going to go right on the outside of that purpley shadow we just created. Because it's raising from the cookie, right? So you want it to create a little bit of dimension. So I'm kind of just following along the edges right here, but a pretty watered down version of it. There you go. Okay, So now let's get to the fun part again. We're gonna frost, we're gonna ice these cookies. I'm gonna take, let's start off with red again. So that same red that we used to add onto the gingerbread person, just go straight in with that red, and let's make lines on the candy cane. So let's make a line right here. And we're gonna alternate with green. So just mind the spacing, however you prefer it. I'm gonna make a rounded edge, like this. And then maybe right here. And you could do whatever color you want. These are just the colors I picked. And they're not straight, like completely straight lines. As you can see, they're kind of slightly curved. They're following the, kind of like the volume of the candy canes, or the candy cane cookies frosting. Again, if you need a pause, pause. Take your time with it. And if you make a mistake, you could always paint over it. Also, it's easy to compare paintings with those around you, but just remember that. Sounds cheesy, but everyone does have a very different journey in art, and you really can only compare your art to whatever pieces you've created in the past. And you just get better at it. It's just practice. It's so much muscle memory. That's all it is. That's just the difference. Okay, clean out that brush. We're going into the green now, and we're doing the same exact thing, but we're just gonna alternate with the red. Okay, so I'm gonna go, okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but there's a bead of water right here, like at the edge of my brush. Oh, see, it ended up on my fingernail. You have to make sure that it's wiped off because it always trickles down onto my brush and it creates pools on the paper, and that's when I mess up. And that's when it's a whole mess. So I'm doing the same thing with the green, same exact pattern, same exact style. And I don't know if you could tell, but the stripes are kind of hanging over the edge of the frosting. Because it's realistic, right? Drink whatever beverage you have. My tea has gone cold. This is kind of cool because it reminds me of actually icing a cookie. And can I just say that I much rather prefer this over an in-person workshop, or just like the in-person workshops I've done, mainly because I stress myself out too much with that. Here, we can just like relax. I think it's because the in-person workshops, I'm in a time crunch, but here, I can chill. I can just chill. All right, so that's frosted. I'm gonna add in the shadows now. So I don't know if you remember this shadow that we created for the gingerbread cookies bow. We're gonna do that on the right side of each of the stripes, because again, the light is coming from the left and I'm still using my skinny brush. I'm going pretty light with it. But also, this is your painting, this is your piece. You could also go for like a higher contrast. Or if you're happy with the way they look, you don't have to add in shadows. You can fast forward. Do whatever you want. Okay, clean out this brush. And then for the green, I'm going to get a little bit more of that blue and mix in that green. Same thing that we did earlier with the gingerbread person. Oops, brush is a little dry. At this point, I think I can confidently say that you're definitely a little bit more comfortable with your brushes. And if not, that's okay. It takes time. Yay! Clean out my brush. Remember that shadow we created? That purpley color that we created for this white frosting? You're gonna put it right to the right of each of these stripes because it's creating shadow. It's very light. Like I'm barely like putting down a little bit of color. It's so subtle. I just have to make sure that it doesn't bleed from the previous color. Like so subtle, like look at how subtle it is. It's a very watered down version of it. Ah! Some of this red bled. So I'm going to tap it with my paper towel or with my rag and then fix that red here and we're good. Okay, clean off that brush. Gonna take this very light version of that, like kind of this orangey, burnt orangey color. And we're gonna put it right on the outside. Or not on the outside. I'm gonna put it the tips of these red parts. So again, we're using the same highlights that we used for the gingerbread cookies red bow. I'm just lining the red. And the green, same thing with the green or similar. I'm gonna get some of that white, put it right here. Little bit of green, teeny bit of green, and yellow. Add in some of that yellow. Gonna highlight this cookie. Oop, not on the red. You know what time it is. It's time to outline. It is time to outline. We'll go back into that black paint or whatever pen you have. And we're gonna start outlining. Outline my cookie. Start from here, maybe some scraggly lines there, incomplete lines, following along the outside of this candy cane. And maybe the top part of the candy cane. I'm not gonna outline too much. Maybe only part of the white. Oop, see how I made a mistake here? I'll just do this. Oh well, just part of it. Maybe add an extra line right here. Extra lines there. Makes it look like it's on purpose. And the inside part of the cookie, similar A little bit more disjointed with the lines. Maybe more dots in here. Then with the frosting, not too much on the frosting. Okay, directional lines on the cookies, or in the cookie part. I have marked, as you can see, I've marked my paper. I just noticed it's because the side of my hand is full of paint. It happens. We're gonna paint over it anyway. Make directional lines here. Dots in this cookie. And there you have it. We have our candy cane. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I'm taking that bigger round brush, and now we're gonna make this sugar cookie with green frosting at the very front. And at this point, you can really just apply everything that we've gone over so far, and it's so easy. Maybe it's, I don't want to say it's so easy, but it's easier to remember. So I'm going to take more of that yellow, make sure that I have space on my palette, and make it pretty liquidy. I'll just mix it on the side right here. And you know what? I'm gonna mix a bit of white. Take that white, mix it in there. Just squish it in there if you have any more of that white left. Okay, so this cookie is gonna be pretty yellow. It's gonna be like it's almost like cake batter yellow. And I'm gonna make a bitten cookie shape. Gonna go right here, so I'm gonna make the edge right here, the cookie's edge is right here, maybe right here, like close to the edge. We're gonna overlap this candy cane, and we're gonna put a bite into the cookie right here. So I'm making this kind of jagged moon shape, and I'm gonna connect it in the semicircle. The semicircle. So it almost looks like a very crunchy moon, if that makes sense. And I'm gonna fill that in. Fill it all the way in. Cool. All right, let's make the shadow for that. The shadow for this cookie would be more, very similar to the gingerbread. So I'm going to take some of that burnt sienna, and I'm going to put it, I'm going to mix some of that yellow in there. My palette's starting to get messy, and that's just what happens. I'm going to mix in some of that yellow in there, and I'm gonna go for this color. Surprise, it's another golden brown color. And light is coming from here. So this side of the cookie is gonna be a little covered. I'm gonna work mainly on the flat edge, or not the flat edge, on the side of my pointed brush. So I'm gonna go right here, and I'm kind of just like dabbing into it because it's bitten, right? Like the cookie is gonna feel very irregular. So I'm kind of making these like scalloped shapes right by the edge, but I'm not going all the way to the edge of the cookie. And I'm gonna make slight dots because this is gonna start showing into the light. Then maybe some dots right here. Then as we get to the edge of that cookie, so this cookie is, I'm going to draw a slight edge right here. And that bite is going to appear there. So this is where the frosting is going to lay on top. Take that same color, go just in the middle part of this outer edge, and same flicky strokes going outward, okay, like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of that yellow and mix it right here on the side. So now, right next to it, it's this brighter version of it, because it's still away from the sun, right? Because this whole part is facing the sun, this one isn't. So it's still going to be darker. Same technique. I'm going to go like that right here. Okay. And I'm going to take some of those midtones, put it here. Start kind of meshing it with this darker part. Cool. All right, wash out that brush. We're gonna frost this cookie. Gonna do a green frosting. Gonna take all that green, let's put it right here, so we have plenty of workspace. Just take all that green. You know what, better yet, I'm gonna grab some more of that green. Squeeze out a pea-sized amount of that green. Get a bit of clean water, or the cleanest water you can have. Get that milky color or that milky consistency. We're just gonna plop that frosting right on top of the cookie. So first, I'm gonna follow the edges right here. Again, I'm laying this brush on its side. I'm just following along this cookie. Okay. So it's pretty straight edged here, or pretty clean and smooth on the right hand side, because it's just sitting on top of the cookie. But then as soon as we get to this part, you're gonna see how it's been piled on. So I'm gonna be a little messier with it. So I'm going to bring it down here, so slight curve down, and then maybe it's been like smeared on like this. Smeared. And then maybe a bigger pile right here. And kind of dips down. Then it fluffs up some more here, overlapping our candy cane cookie, and dips back down. And I want to cover that candy cane some more, so I'm just going to add in a little bit more of that green. There. I'm going to color it all the way in. It's a frosted cookie. Cool. Okay, get some of that blue, dip your brush, dip your brush in a bit of water. Get some of that blue. My blue has dried, so that's why I'm being pretty crazy with jamming my brush into it. But if you don't have much blue left, just squeeze some more out. So I'm getting some of that green. Similar shade to the color of the frosting of the green that we used. And you're just gonna frost that shading on the right-hand side of the frosting. I'm very imperfect with it because this is frosting. It was just plopped on. I'm gonna focus on the shadows, not showing in the sun because the sun's from here. So this side is curving in, so there's gonna be some shading there. But there are bites there, so some of this will show through, some of it is gonna peek through. So I'm kind of just like feeling for where the bites are. I like that. And maybe some part of the frosting is like right there. It's not showing in the sun. Then maybe like this, maybe this motion, like it almost like feels like they smeared it on like this. Like that. Like just some irregular lines working mainly in the edge of my brush or the side of my brush. Now we're gonna make some highlights. So take your clean water, get some of that pale yellow you got before, put it right here, get some of that green, get a lot more of that pale yellow. You want enough to show through because this is probably not opaque enough. Take a lot more of that. It's a lot of yellow that I'm using. This is the color that we're going for. You know what? For this one, I want the consistency to be a little thicker. We want to lay it on thicker. Because that green or that yellowy green really wants to pop through on top of that thick green we just laid on. Maybe like this. More yellow. Needs more yellow. More cowbell. There it is. Okay. Now I'm going to take the inside and kind of applying it similarly, but now focusing on the highlights of the frosting. Some highlights here, right? And some here. There and there. There you go. I quite like that. Okay, clean up this brush. So I've got those highlights on. And then I want to make it look a little more interesting. Gonna take more of that white. Be neater than I am if you can, but I don't know. Take more of that white. And bring it out to the side here, next to the blue. Take some of that blue, a little bit of that blue. Brighten it up with some green. More white. More white, a lot more white. You almost get this like this minty color. I'm gonna add this in because I think it just looks cool. It's gonna add a little bit more dimension. It's just gonna look more interesting. So I'm gonna put it like kind of to the left side of each of those yellow bits that I laid down. Maybe some dots here. Doesn't have to be so concise, but it just adds in a little bit more. I'm gonna concentrate it on the leftmost part of the frosting, overall the overall frosting, like that. So it just creates a little bit more volume, and then I'm gonna kind of just swirl it right there and tapers off. Then maybe I'll add it right here. There, so create some separation. Add it on this side. There it is. Okay, wash off this brush. And I'm gonna take all that blue, as much blue as I can, drag it into that green. So it's gonna look like, almost like a dark foresty green. And I'm gonna put it right here, just on the right side of that frosting. Cool. So it just creates that overall contrast and value difference within that frosting. And that frosting is done. Let it dry for a bit. We'll pause. Okay, taking that skinnier brush, you are going to add sprinkles with, guess what, the same colors that we did earlier, the red and the green. Or no, red and white actually. We're doing red and white. Okay, I'm loading up my brush and I'm doing shorter strokes of red sprinkles. And I let this entire green frosting dry because I have made this mistake before where I didn't let it dry and it just completely bled throughout the whole paper. Oopsies. And go crazy with the sprinkles. Place it wherever you want. Some of them will be overlapping, maybe like this X. Maybe some of them will be like side by side in a cluster like this. They're sprinkles. They do whatever they want. And I'm laying it down. I'm going to show you my scratch paper from this side, from this angle. So I'm just laying it down on the side of my brush so it looks like that. I mean, that was kind of the worst way to show it. Or not the worst way, but you get the point. I'm laying the brush on its side just so it could create these long, kind of like rice grain looking lines. And clean out that brush. I'm gonna grab that white. I'm gonna do just pure white all on top. Do it the same exact way. Making sure not to touch any wet red, what do you call these, sprinkles, because it will leak onto each other. Doing the same exact thing. It's fun, right? Isn't it fun? I don't know why I have this constant need, like whenever I'm hanging out with someone, I'm like, are you having fun? As if I took them there by force. I mean, hopefully you're not doing this by force. Okay, brush is getting a little too dry, so adding in a little bit more water, but not too watery. Going for that milky consistency. some of those sprinkles. Maybe one ended up here. Maybe one overlaps this red. I'm eyeing which red pieces are already dry, just so I could do this. Okay, I like that. All right, completely clean out your brush. And we're going to the fun part again. We're gonna outline it, going back into that black or your pen. You know what to do in this part. Gonna do your outlines. Kind of scraggly on the outside. Dots here. Then maybe a little jagged on this edge because the cookie was bitten into. I wonder who bit the cookie. Who ate the cookie? I'm doing that on the edges and making some lines here, some lines there, like just some subtle lines as it gets closer towards the center. I'm adding in a bunch of dots just to show how porous the cookie is on the inside. Then maybe a couple directional lines here, just very subtle. A lot more directional lines here, maybe up and down like that. Some dots right there. And now let's get to the frosting. The frosting kind of dips down like that. Same thing. And wherever any piece of sprinkle is sticking out of the frosting, I don't outline that part. I think it looks kind of cool because it's kind of jutting out. Then I'm going to line right here, line right there, some dots there, here, 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 lines, lines. And again, there's a bite in that frosting, so I'm just going to define those lines a little bit more with these like scallop shapes, and then maybe make little backwards threes just to show where they've been bitten. Maybe some quick like parentheses lying down like this within the bites, just so it looks like it's a convincing bite. And I'm gonna make random, maybe semi or just arcs within the frosting, not going over any of the sprinkles. And if I happen to go over any sprinkles, that's fine. Maybe some dots here and there, just to add some texture to the frosting. And there's our cookie. Yay! The cookies are officially done. Now we're just gonna add in some finishing touches. I mean, they're not just finishing touches. They add in a lot more to the scene. So we're gonna add like maybe a mug right here of milk, and then maybe a little tree and some holly. Okay, you can work with your larger rounded brush. And this one, I'm just gonna go for whatever color I want. Maybe I'll go for this green. I'll go for a green, kind of mixed in with a little bit of that blue. Kind of like this festive mug. And I'm gonna say this mug is like kind of sticking out. And it's cool because it's like mirrored, right? Because this is green and it's round, and then we have a green right here and it's a little round too. So I'm gonna make like kind of a squished circle right here. It's like a little cheat because you don't have to draw the entire circle. And then you're gonna draw a slightly angled diagonal down right here. And then you're gonna follow in the same direction, or in the same curve as that top part of the mug. And I'm just gonna color it all the way in. This one is a little more translucent because I'm just going a little looser with it. It's not the main focus of the painting, if that makes sense. I want most of the focus to go onto the cookies. And these are like the supporting characters. Okay, and I'm just gonna make these lines, like the rim of the mug, to be a little thicker here. Cool. All right, you know how to shade green, right? We're gonna take some of that blue, and this is nice because it's not so detailed. We're just going to make a slight, so this brush has like fanned out a little bit, as you can see. So I use that fan to draw a line right here in the edge, and I go probably like 2/3 of the way to the left because again, the light's coming from here. I'm gonna shade all this in. Shade this entire part in, and like this. And it kind of just slowly fades out. And if it gets a little too streaky, I'm gonna put a little bit of water on that brush, and I'm just going to use that slightly wet brush to slowly fade out that shadow towards the edge. And if it's too much shadow, like once I have half an inch left, I'm gonna completely clean that brush, dry it like 50%, and then just clean it up so it's not such a harsh line. There. Perfect. Okay, so there's gonna be milk in there. I'm gonna put in the clean water, and that milk, because it's white, we're only gonna focus on that purpley shadow. So we're gonna take some of that white, put it right here, a little bit of red, put it here because I ran out, a little bit of red, and then a little bit of blue. So we're going for that purpley shadow again, like we used for the shadow of the candy cane frosting. And I'm just gonna put all my focus on this side, right here, because it's being covered by the cup. So it's like this half, or not half, it's a moon, this moon shape. And it's just gonna follow all the way the lip right here. And I'm gonna drag that line all the way over here. Cool. And using the tip of my brush, I'm going to make a smaller moon or a C on the inside. And then I'm gonna make a C to mirror that. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. So parentheses, parentheses, and then tinier ones, tinier ones. So I go side to side, top and bottom, and then smaller one in, and then a dot in the center finally. So that's just my milk, like the simplest way to make liquid. Completely wash out that brush and get a lot more of that blue, lot more of that blue. Mix it in some more with that green that you have. And we're just gonna fill in this part right here because it's in the dark, covered from the sun. Again, if your lines, if it looks not the way you want it, we just work with it. Maybe you're gonna have a slightly drier brush, not too much color left on it, and you just slowly fade it out towards the rest of that shadow. There you go. Okay, and then let's make this cup a little festive. Maybe we'll draw a little snowflake on it. Nothing crazy. So I'm out of that blue. I'm gonna take some more of that ultramarine deep. I'm gonna squeeze out like 1/8 of a pea size. Take some clean water, get like this much blue, and I'm gonna mix it in some more with that green that I have earlier. Oops, some of that white is starting to mix in. Don't worry. So basically it's like a darker shade of that, the shadow that we have created for this mug. So I'm gonna use it to line. Let's say I want a line going up and down. And then because the cup curves, I'm gonna hit the center point of this line. So I'm gonna make a little like hash right here. And it's just the guideline, and it's gonna curve slightly like that. Got it? And snowflake, so I'm making this look more like a compass, like that. Cool, and then maybe I'll connect some of these lines. Oh, I don't know what a snowflake looks like. I'm all confident. Maybe I'll make little spikes on the outsides of each of the lines that we just created. You could also look up whatever snowflake pattern that you want. I like that. And then maybe we'll make little stars within each quadrant that we've created. We're just drawing this. And then for this part, if you're like, I kind of hate the way the snowflake looks, just paint over it with a green. Or you can use a pen. And I'm gonna add some like asterisks all over. Maybe little circles all over the mug. No rhyme or reason, just going everywhere, wherever feels right. Like maybe this one needs a circle, maybe this one needs a star. This one definitely needs a circle, star. Or you can copy my exact same placement. Asterisks, more circles, or you can alternate. I know my type A people out there know what looks good, so they're definitely going to be more organized than what I am doing. Oh, look at that. There you go. Okay, wash out that brush completely. Get that black. We're gonna do the same thing, same outlines. Isn't it fun? I love outlining. Here I am again, asking you, are you having fun? You better be having fun. I'm just kidding. I really hope you're having fun though. Okay, and we're gonna outline down here, and more here. And a trick I like to do is if you're like, I feel a little, what do you call that? My lines feel a little crooked and you want a straighter line, just move your entire arm. So just keep your hand still here. And then you're gonna move down your arm. It's gonna make a farty sound though. There, and then I left a line here. So this line's a little thicker than the rest of my painting, but oh well, who cares? Do the same thing here. And the lip of that cup, make kind of a disjointed line. That line was a little crooked, but I'll make this a little thicker just to even it out. Line here, maybe some dots here. Got some paint in the edge of my hand. Wipe it off. Perfect. Okay, maybe in the lip of that cup, I'm gonna make like little hash lines right there. Just so you see the direction that the lip of the cup is going in. I love this. Okay. I'm gonna erase this or wipe off my brush. And the finishing touches. I'm gonna go with my bigger brush again. Bigger brush. I'm gonna put in some, what do you call these? Hollies? Hollies? Is it holly? Whatever. I don't know if you could tell yet, but I'm very go with the flow. So I'm gonna take some of that green. I need more green. So whatever green you could find on your palette, go for it. But if you want more green, you can squeeze more out. More green, and then making it that milky color. Mixing in a bit of blue on the side right here, okay? And then, so there's that, and then I'm gonna mix in a lot more blue at the very edge, the very edge right here. So this is gonna be the darkest one, so it's almost blue. This is the easiest way to create, what do you call that? I keep talking without remembering what I'm gonna say. This is the easiest way to create depth. So I have 3 colors, right? So I have the darkest, medium, lightest. I'm gonna take the pointed part of my brush and I'm gonna start like right here, right at the tip. Maybe I'll make a dot right there. And then maybe the holly ends like right here. And I'm gonna make a slight curve like this. So it doesn't have to be a straight line because it's gonna be all hidden anyway. And I'm gonna make a slight, like maybe some quick kind of like rounded leafy shapes jutting out like this, maybe like this. So you're drawing with a brush. Leafy shapes like that. It's kind of thin at the bottom and then kind of like fluffs out. And it goes a little wilder towards the top. And don't be afraid to go all the way to the edge. Maybe there's a leaf here too. And maybe one right here. Cool. And I'm just gonna color each individual leaf in. Again, I'm not trying to be perfect with it. I'm just more so filling out the volume, this entire space. And if this needs more of a connection, I'm gonna complete that line. I feel like this is the chillest part of the illustration. If you've gotten this far, congrats, because painting, I feel like can be such a mental, just like a mental feat, because you have so many expectations, you want to make sure that it's turning out okay, but then you realize that it goes through an ugly phase. Like, there's so many artists that say that, but it's true. It goes through an ugly phase because not everything is down. Like, you're building. You're in this constant state of building. But at the very end, once you start putting in those final details, like, you know, with our lines, everything starts to come together and you realize, like, oh, that's why we go through the process. It almost builds, I feel like it builds resilience. This is why I love art. Okay, clean out that brush. Wipe it off, get that mid-tone now. If you need a little more yellow, grab more yellow. This. And I need a little more green because I made that a little too yellow. I'm gonna restore that mid-tone that I created. Get a bit more of that blue. Cool. Okay, so I'm going for like that color. All right, so now we're gonna add in, we're kind of just gonna follow the leftmost part of those leaves, but only like the top part. I'm only focusing on the top part of the leaves and like just quick strokes because we're following the light of the leaves. Not doing anything too crazy, nothing fancy. We're just creating more light and depth. Maybe some leaves I leave dark. Very quick. Wash off that brush again. And now we're gonna get the lightest one. So that's the one where it's mostly green. Maybe I'm gonna add in a little bit more yellow. Make sure it's that milky consistency. And now I'm just gonna dab the outermost parts with yellow. And it's skinnier. Each time I lay down a color that's lighter than the previous one, it gets a little skinnier because the highlights are smaller than the darker parts. And maybe I draw a slight line running down. Yay, okay. Completely wash this out, clean it out, and we're going back into that red. That red, I'm gonna take some of that red, and I'm gonna add in a bit of that blue, the red, so it's like darker. And there's a bit of burnt sienna in there. So you want this like dark red, similar to the shadow of the gingerbread man's bow. And I'm gonna make circles out here. So we're kind of going backwards than what we've been doing before, where we're working with the shadow first, and then we go into the highlights, which I feel like it's really fun. And then maybe this one's like coming off the edge like this. Maybe another one here. So I'm just making circles. Circles don't have to be completely perfect. Maybe another one here. Maybe they're together like that. Okay. And I'm taking that, making sure this is dry. If you like kind of look to the side, you'll see if it's glistening. And if it isn't dry yet, you can just wait, like pause this, or you can go in right now. Mine is more dry and I'm a little impatient. Okay, see, so it's not bleeding through, so that's fine. And I'm just gonna make a cluster of red towards the middle. So maybe one right here. Oops, that circle's not looking very circly. These circles are overlapping. And maybe there's one right here. Then I'm gonna take it towards the top. Maybe there's one here. There's some like stems that kind of connect them, so I'm just kind of drawing some quick lines. Okay, wash these out, or wash out this brush. Set it aside, and I'm gonna take my smaller brush and I'm gonna dig into that pure red color. Again, what consistency are we going for? We're going for milky. Now we're going over each of these, and we're just going to focus on the outer left 2/3. So I'm just making like little squished circles on the outer left 2/3, just creating highlights in these pieces of fruit. You know what? I really should have looked up what these are called on the holly. If I keep making a mistake, I keep calling it a holly. If it's not a holly, I'm so sorry. You know what it is. If you've seen these in like Christmas decorations, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, that. And I'm just doing that all over. Some of them might still be a little wet. Blowing it a little bit to dry it off. You can also use a blow dryer. that is actually very acceptable. And a lot of people do that. I just didn't want to have to require that. That's why I like working with pieces that have multiple elements to it, like a scene, because you can allow things to dry, you can bounce around without needing to blow dry anything. Okay, wash that out. Then you're gonna take some yellow, take a lot of that yellow, put it right here. Oh look, we have a highlight here. Take a bit of that red, just a bit, but it's mostly yellow. It's actually mostly yellow. Mostly yellow. And then maybe a little bit of that highlight, or a little bit of white. Need a little bit more red. There. Okay. And let's do a swatch. Cool. Kind of like a creamsicle, creamy orange. I'm gonna wait for this to dry a little bit before I highlight it. Or let me go over, okay, so looking to the side, some of these are already dry. I'm gonna make smaller, even smaller circles with little dots. Smaller circles with dots. I want this to be a little brighter, so I might just make this like, add in a little bit more white. Yes, there you go. Doing that all over, so small circle with a dot. Or what you could do is maybe like make a streak like this and then a dot. It's whatever you want to do. It's whatever you like. Okay, this one. Need more right here. This could be like more painterly too, so it doesn't have to be so precise. And like just digging back into those colors. How's everyone doing? Hope you're okay. Okay, there you go. All my highlights are done. Add in a little bit more highlights everywhere. Wash this out completely. You know what time it is. It's time to outline. I don't even need to tell you what to do at this point. Except I guess one thing is, this one could be a little looser too. So because this one isn't really too much of a focal point, maybe I'm just gonna make some quick lines like this, running down the stem. Maybe I'm not gonna do any crazy outlines, maybe just like some quick lines like that. So just very quick, not very defined. Some right here, some right there. So I'm doing like a quick parentheses and then a backwards, or like a J to finish that leaf. Parentheses, J, parentheses, J, parentheses, no J. And I'll make little outlines around the circles. I think it looks cool when it's when the lines are very quick, because I really do believe that what makes art some art pieces look good is that the strokes look confident. Like you can tell when something's not confident, like you hesitated on it. Just go in it with confidence, and if you mess up, I feel like it just looks better. Like confident mistakes look better than hesitated marks. Does that make sense? There. Maybe a little line right here, line there, and maybe some dots in there. Little dots. A couple dots in each little berry. Maybe some lines in the middle of some of these leaves. Makes it a little more interesting. Yay! That's done. And this is optional, but I'm gonna add a little, just a mini Christmas tree here, okay? All right, we're gonna make it really simple. Big round brush. Big round brush. And let's take, I'm gonna take this like white, like pinky white color, maybe some of this burnt sienna, any amalgamation of colors that you can come up with. And I'm gonna make a little a little circle right here. Like a little squished circle right here. Let's go for a, yeah, like a squished circle like that. And then you're gonna draw lines down each side right here. And then you're gonna follow the curve of the circle at the top. Cool. All right, take some more. You don't even have to wash that brush out. Take some more of that burnt sienna, because you probably have some more. And make sure that your brush is wet enough so that it gives it that milky consistency, and then draw this line at the top so you get a cylinder. Now I'm just gonna have you paint the right half of the bottom part of the cylinder. This, and you're gonna do like little flicky motions towards the edge. Again, this one's not supposed to be perfect. It's just part of it's one of the props. And the center part of the circle, I'm gonna make a dot with a line running up right here. We're gonna take like the middle part of the gingerbread man's hand. I'm just gonna draw a line here because it's like a little tree. Okay. Wash off that brush. We're gonna let this dry completely. And remember these colors we just created for your holly or whatever that plant is? We're gonna do the same thing. Make sure that you have enough of that color. I need a little bit more of that ultramarine deep. We're working from darkest to lightest again. So I'm gonna start, because the tree is gonna be in this slight angle. So I'm just gonna draw a very rough, so I'm gonna like dot it like this. I'm gonna dot it like this just to follow the direction of the tree, just so I know. And it's gonna come all the way up here, okay? So I'm just making like some quick dots. Okay, so that's kind of like more or less the shape of the tree. And now I'm gonna come from the middle and I'm just gonna make quick strokes going out. So it kind of like flares out from the center. I'm using the bark or the trunk of the tree as the point. So if you're getting closer to the midline of the tree, those strokes are getting shorter and they go towards you. They go completely down. But the more they go out to the right or the left to the sides, they're longer. They're longer strokes. But as they get closer to you, they go a little more down and then they flare out and go longer. So by the trunk is shorter strokes, and then as they go out, they get longer. Like little flicks, working with just the point. Okay, washing this out. And I think I want to move on to my tinier brush, just because these leaves are getting smaller. I'm going into that mid-tone, so more of that green, or a lighter version of that green, kind of mid-tone that we used for here. And I'm doing the same exact technique, but now I'm just going to focus on the outer 2/3, the left 2/3 of the tree, and focusing more on that left part of the tree. It's fun because you can just be loose with it. And then on this side, not too much on that right-hand side because the sun's not touching it too much. Cool. That's done. And I'm dragging it out all the way to the left. Oop. Wash out that brush, and we're gonna go into the lightest part of that green. Let me put in a little bit more yellow in that lightest green value. And now we're gonna focus on the outer 1/3 of that tree, really dragging out that lightest color all the way to the edge because that's where the most light is. Cool. And then maybe there's some backlight happening over here just to make it more interesting. And that yellow lining that tree to the right, but not too much, just a peek. And that tree is done. It's a cute tree, right? Okay. Now here, you could outline it. So what I'll do is I'll probably just outline the base of this tree stand, not the actual tree itself. There and there. Some lines. Maybe some outlines down here. And that's it. Nothing insane. Oh my gosh, you guys. I think we're almost done. So you can leave it like this. This could be your finished product. Or what you could do, I just realized this is a little lopsided. I could shift it all the way down, but I don't care. I'm gonna make a fun, background color. I think I'm gonna do, let's see, this blue. So I'm gonna put in plenty of white, put in a lot of white. And I'm gonna take that same blue, that ultramarine deep, and take my clean, bigger round brush. I'm gonna do mostly white and just a teensy bit of blue. I mean, not a teensy bit, but you want it to look like, it's like you're looking at a shadow of snow, like that. Ooh, pretty. So this is what we're looking at. Very pretty. And I'm just gonna go around everything right here. Oh, it's so nice and creamy. This is my favorite part because it really ties everything together. It's very satisfying. And this one, it's not very translucent. I'm laying it on pretty creamy. And I'm just going like right by towards the edge of each subject, but I'm not too worried about getting rid of each part of that white space completely, because I think it's kind of cool when it gives it a little bit of an outline, like a white outline around the edge of the piece of each subject, I mean. You could use a different type of blue, but I think it's nice to stick to the same blue that we've used because it really creates such a cohesive piece. Making sure I don't have paint on the edge of my hand. Feel free to fast forward, or I'm going to turn this into a time lapse. And you can just chill in this part and just color everything in. Yeah, I'm gonna fast forward. And if you're running out of color like I did, like a fool, just add in a little bit more white and mix it in. And add in just a little bit, like way less blue than you did before, just to make it look a little more cohesive. It's gonna look a little different, but it'll give it a little bit of style. And around the tree, since it's a little jagged, kind of go a little jagged by the tree. It's almost like they're laying in snow with this color. And it's the background, so it doesn't have to be perfect either. It gives it more style, and it makes the colors pop. Because it's blue, and you have a lot of these orangey undertones, which is a good complementary color to blue. You can drag that color all the way across. And you can introduce some of that newer color towards the corners, the edges, make like little streaks everywhere, just to make it look more cohesive, because the colors may dry a little different if you didn't have enough color. But the streaks kind of, I don't know, they look kind of cool. That's just how I fix my mistakes. Okay, right here. A little tricky to get to this part. All right, I think we're done. Yay. Whew, how are you guys? This is the most satisfying part. I'm gonna peel this off. Just taped it down. Maybe some of that paper will rip. It just happens. Oh, beautiful. Look at this. This is it. Your beautiful holiday cookie scape. Well, I hope you enjoyed that paint and sip session. I refilled on my green tea. And I hope you really enjoyed yourself, learned a lot of things in the process, learned resilience, because painting is a lot of that and a lot of art, for me at least. If you use different colors, I'd love to know what other colors you used, or if you used a different background color, I'd love to see different background combinations. But I will see you next time, and happy painting. Bye.